I could also do them if you don't want.
I think we're good to go. We're recording. If you guys are ready.
So in this memo, we suggest adjustments to the mercury and air toxic standards rules. Our policy recommendations are that the Biden administration should implement a form of the PM 2.5 standard on top of the current MATS rules that are in place. And by doing so, the administration would estimate mercury-related benefits using tangible factors other than children's IQ. And we also suggest that they should consider retail electrical prices and consumer costs that are incurred during energy source transitions. So the EPA currently sets emission standards for existing coal and oil-fired power plants under MATS in the category that are these plants are at least as stringent as the emissions reductions achieved by the average from the top 12% best controlled sources within that category. So the standards apply to all hazardous air pollutants without distinctions between the size or different types of energy from these sources. And they have a capacity of 25 megawatts or greater. So power plants can execute the reduction with either using the maximum achievable control technology, which would be estimated to reduce emissions by 30%, or cap and trade, which had a 70% estimated reduction. So the cost benefit measurement issue here is that the EPA's analysis initially considered co-benefits. This was then reversed under the Michigan versus EPA court case and determined that only a small share of the monetized benefits come from mercury, with the cost to power plants at $9.6 billion and mercury-related benefits only being quantifiable at $4 to $6 million. The alternative would be to count co-benefits, and at a 7% discount rate, this would mean that the total benefits are between 33 and 81 billion.
So we found two major flaws in the initial calculations of the cost benefit analysis by the EPA. And the first of these major issues was the overestimation of infant intelligence in relation to predicting future income as a benefit, as well as the dismissal of retail electric prices as a result of investment in future growth. In relation to the future mercury benefits with IQ of infants, we look at table 9 and it sees that the average IQ loss per prenatally exposed child is 0.1068. If you look at what it says then in the case study, it says that there's a lifetime median earning of $555K. So, multiplying that by 0.1 would get you about $55,000 per person. This does not take into account as a cost for the cost benefit analysis. This takes into account it as a benefit, stating that this is what they're calculating the losses could potentially be, and that's the benefit you're getting from that mercury. We feel like this is an overestimation because they're kind of extrapolating the point that median income is determined strictly on mercury based with an IQ loss. And the other thing is they, in the study, they weren't able to actually separate those women who had 8 grams of fish per day and those who didn't. They simply put them into groups of individuals who had similar lifestyles, but they weren't actually able to determine the exact person-to-person cases. So we felt that this was an overestimation as well as a misread, and that would actually change greatly the benefits to the MATS rule. So they would need to do a different calculation in order to get a better cost benefit analysis. The second impact that we found that they left out was electric retail prices. As we can see from table 5, there was a great decrease to coal. However, there was a greater increase to oil and natural gases that levied the difference between the totals of new and base case policies. They didn't count the 3.1% growth of prices in those two oil and natural gases as a result of prompting the end users to create an increased investment in energy efficiency and or curtail some of their use to electricity to encourage them to use substitutes. We find these substitutes to be natural gas, like renewable energies. And I think it's an overestimation and a reach to say that everybody who's going to stop using oil and natural gas is immediately going to be able to go into the renewable energy field. We think that there needs to be a way to slowly make people integrate better into this sector. And maybe another suggestion that we have suggested is to have 5-year checks to make sure that there is investment going to this, but this is something that they definitely needed to incur with the costs.
Okay, so our suggested modifications to the MATS rule are the first one being that the MATS rule, Our first suggested modification to the MATS rule is that we consider the co-benefits of the proposed policy in creating cost-benefit analysis. Because the emissions reductions in other toxic substances are intrinsically linked to reduction in mercury levels, such as that one technology can reduce all of the above and cannot be isolated from one another, these co-benefits should all be considered as resulting from the policy. The EPA listed about a dozen different co-benefits that greatly increases the price of the considered benefits of MATs, which cover a vast range of people and potential benefits. However, the sheer number of listed co-benefits considered by the EPA points to the fact that a large number of them offer very unreasonable monetary returns and require some leaps of faith to accept them. Those being IQ point losses by children and mothers ingesting freshwater fish while pregnant. We suggest that these co-benefits be accepted, but that there be more extensive research done in measuring these benefits and include those that have glaring concrete evidence of benefit as a result of reduction in mercury levels. Our second suggestion is that we also take into account the incurred costs by consumers and the availability of other energy sources. The EPA stated that the response via price increase would incentivize investment in energy efficiency and encourage substitutes, thus offsetting the cost of pollution controls and fuel switching. While this response may increase the likelihood that investments into more renewable and efficient energy will be made, it does not outright prevent the increase in cost that will be incurred by consumers in the immediate aftermath of the switch. There is a big assumption being made that the price increase and subsequent offsets in cost almost perfectly. More importantly, our suggestion is that these immediate jumps in price be reflected in the cost benefit analysis of MAT's implementation. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.